Valve has just suddenly announced a new model Steam Deck with the Steam Deck OLED, something that on the surface you might just think, oh, okay, cool, this is kind of like the Switch OLED where, it just has an OLED screen, it's a little bit bigger, neat, I don't know if I need that. It's actually a lot more than just that. When you look at the full spec list of what's changing with this new Steam Deck, well, it isn't quite necessarily a Steam Deck 2.0, and a lot of the internals as far as just raw power goes is about the same. It has had incremental upgrades in so many different areas that I just want to cover all of it real quick and just talk about whether or not, this is something that if you already have a Steam Deck, maybe you want to look at this a little bit more. So first things first, really basic details. This is a new model of Steam Deck that will be going on sale a week from today, and this new OLED model is coming in a couple different options with a 512 option, which was previously the highest that you could get for a Steam Deck before. It's going to have a 1 terabyte option, which is the new highest, and then there's also going to be a limited edition option that still has that 1 terabyte drive, but for a little bit more money, you're getting a limited edition design that has a transparent shell with some orange highlights that looks really nice, along with a limited edition carrying case. Now, as the name implies, the main feature that's being immediately highlighted about this new model is the fact that it has an OLED display. If you're not familiar with the benefits of an OLED display, the really short version of this is that compared to the LCD that's being used on current model Steam Decks, you're able to achieve much deeper blacks that allows for a much better contrast when you have brightly lit pixels, and you also tend to have much richer colors as a result with this as well. One thing worth noting about the Steam Deck in comparison to the Switch when it comes to adding this OLED display is that the Steam Deck, unlike the Switch, supports HDR, which the OLED screen is going to be able to take full advantage of and allow for even more beautiful colors and better detail with high brightness colors that you just can't do with non-HDR visuals. Alongside with the change of this display tech, you're also getting a slightly larger display. It's going from 7 inches to 7.4. It's maintaining the same aspect ratio as well as the same base resolution of 800p. So you are going to have a little less pixel density, but honestly, a 0.4-inch increase is not going to be that massive of impact as far as how good details look on this screen. One other interesting change with the display is that they're also upping the refresh rate on this. Current model Steam Decks have a 60 Hz display, whereas this new Steam Deck OLED is going to be offering 90 Hz. So it's not hitting 120, which I think is the kind of normal number people hear 60 jump to, but 90 is still going to offer an increased smoothness in how frame rate displays for those games that can hit that higher frame rate, while not being quite as demanding or taxing on the system. And one of the side benefits of switching over to OLED is that, generally speaking, the power draw is less for that compared to an LCD screen because it's not lighting up the entire panel all the time. It's just selectively lighting up individual pixels when need be, which does end up helping with battery life, which is another thing that's actually seeing a major improvement on this new model. Not only has the change to OLED reduced battery draw, but they've also changed over to a new APU that is only 6 nanometer, meaning that it's basically more power efficient than the previous model of Steam Deck, which results in more battery life, along with the system being able to run cooler. And on top of that, while the system is more energy efficient in general because of these changes, it includes a larger battery, going from one previously that was 40 watt hours to now 50 watt hours. Basically a 25% increase that's going to end up being even more so because of this now more efficient system. To give a better idea of what this increased battery life means in actual practice, Valve's own estimations for this is that the current model Steam Deck, depending on what kind of games you're playing and how intense they are, can last anywhere between 2 and 8 hours, whereas this new Steam OLED model lasts from 3 to 12. Which, when comparing the lows to the lows and the highs to the highs, is a 50% increase. One of the things that Valve has also said is that they have changed up the type of battery it is that also allows for it to charge faster, with the particular example that they're giving on their website saying that you can go from 20 to 80% in just 45 minutes. Battery and display are the main two things that really impact your day-to-day experience with the system, but there's a lot of other little things with this they've announced that have been updated as well. They are updating this model to support Wi-Fi 6E, which means that it's going to be capable of faster downloads, meaning faster installs whenever you're going to be downloading games onto the system. They're also upgrading the Bluetooth to 5.3, which allows it to support newer and better codecs that allow for better and faster communication with up-to-date accessories that support these codecs. And on the subject of Bluetooth, they've also added an additional antenna to the system, which allows for better Bluetooth performance in a larger distance. So when you're using the system docked and you're trying to connect multiple Bluetooth controllers, that's going to be a situation that works out better than it did on current models. One other specific upgrade about this they noted as well, which is kind of a specific case thing, but I'm absolutely sure there are people who have encountered this issue and would love to see this change. This model also allows you to wake up the system via Bluetooth controller. So if you're using a controller via Bluetooth with the system docked and you want to be able to turn your Steam Deck on without walking up and hitting the power button on it, you can now do that with Bluetooth controllers. There's a whole lot of other stuff they've mentioned as as well as far as a controller interface level with the system. Just upgrades to how the sticks, buttons, and D-pad feel. The touchscreen has a higher polling rate, meaning that it allows for more accurate touchscreen controls for those situations where you're using them. One other minor upgrade that I found interesting as well is actually not related to the Steam Deck itself. However, the power cable that is being bundled with the Steam Deck OLED is also going to be a longer cable than the one you get on current systems, which both for playing in handheld situations where you want to make use of wall power or you want to make use of a dock setup that just needs a little bit of longer cable, that's always handy in my mind. I'd rather a cable that is a bit too long than one that is a bit too short. One other interesting thing that Valve has highlighted about this new model is that it's also more repairability friendly compared to the current model. If you've taken a Steam Deck apart before or seen other people do it, you'll know that it's the kind of design where when you take the screws out and everything, it's not really meant to be taken apart and put back together again and again, and that can affect the condition of the system and just its general structural integrity. With this new model, the type of screws that they're using for the back of the system, as well as the way that you're able to access all of its individual parts, makes it a much easier system to take apart and put back together without risking any kind of major damage, as well as making it easier to access certain internal components if you want to swap out or repair anything yourself. This is honestly just a system that, aside from the raw power of it, is a general upgrade over the original system in just about every way. It has better battery life, it runs cooler, it has better wireless communications and better Wi-Fi. This is honestly a more significant upgrade than I think people are realizing when just first seeing the announcement of, oh hey, Steam Deck OLED. Now with that in mind though, are these upgrades significant enough to warrant upgrading to the system if you already invested in the Steam Deck? It's a little bit tight. You know, when the Switch OLED came out, I was one of the people who did say that I think if you had the money to spend, it could be worth upgrading from the Switch to the Switch OLED, especially if you had a launch model, because yeah, the OLED screen by itself is really just improving the visuals of the system, but if you play in handheld a lot, that made a big difference. And an important factor here too is the fact that the Switch OLED, while more expensive than any other Switch, is still only at $350. With this new Steam Deck model, if you're looking at the cheapest and lowest version of it with the 512GB storage, that's $550. So there's a whole lot of upgrades going on, but your price of entry is a lot higher. Now, obviously, my opinions right now are based purely on just what we're seeing on the spec sheet and announcement. I have not had my hands on one of these yet, and I am planning to try and get a hold of one when those drop in a week. But for now, just looking at the spec sheet and changes and what that difference is in price, I would say that if you already own a Steam Deck, there's not really a significant enough reason here to spend another $550 to $650 all over again to get these upgrades. If you have the money to burn and you just want the best of the best, sure, if you bought the cheapest model Steam Deck and you really now see yourself wanting something that has higher storage and just better performance in general, and you're willing to spend the money, it could be worth doing an upgrade in that case. The asking price is just, it's definitely tough if you already invested once in the platform, but if you have yet to buy a Steam Deck and you've been holding off, in my mind, this is really the way to go. Yes, the price point can get a lot lower if you look at those cheaper models, and if you just want to get one at the lowest price you can, take that route. There's no shame in it whatsoever. But as far as the value you're getting out of the system and the general performance upgrades, especially when it comes to things like how games can look on that display and getting bigger battery life, to me, this new Steam Deck OLED sounds like absolutely the way that you should go. Honestly, this is just a really cool upgrade to see come out of nowhere, and while I'm sure there's a lot of people who are still waiting on having a more proper option in the form of a Steam Deck 2 that has more power, especially with how many competitors are starting to crop up on the market, it sounds like Valve is trying to hold off on taking that route for a bit longer. They've been very hesitant on talking about the idea of doing a whole brand new Steam Deck anytime soon, and really want to emphasize growing the market for this current one and making games designed for it. So we're probably a good ways out from seeing a proper Steam Deck 2. I would say honestly more than a year at this point. And for the time being, it looks like this OLED model is going to be the definitive way to play the system. So that's just a quick overview and some immediate thoughts and reactions to this out of nowhere new model for the Steam Deck. As always, if you enjoyed this video, hit the thumbs up button to let me know. If you want to see more content like this, I got a lot of stuff planned for this month, especially with how much hardware PlayStation is releasing. Make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you don't miss out, and I will see you guys later.